Welcome to episode 2 of Beyond the Glass. I'm Joe Barrington, and joining me we've got Australian legend Johnny Williams. Johnny, you're now a PSA commentator. You competed for Australia on the PSA World Tour and also at international level. You've had some pretty unbelievable news in your grand old age. You've got a mini Mr. Williams that's appeared. How long ago?
January the 4th, 2019. So he's now...
He's a Capricorn.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Absolutely.
He's 10 and a half months old. He was born 75 years to the day after his grandfather, my father, also named John Williams. For the moment, his name is Misha John Obliger, or MJ, we like to call him.
MJ, I like that. We like nicknames. I mean, MJ, that reminds me of somebody like Michael Jordan, who was obviously a legend of basketball. But we managed to catch up with an Australian legend, a world legend, Geoff Hunt, in Doha. The modern game, as they keep talking, everyone, people talk about how it's changed and all these things. Obviously the tin's got lower, the technology with the rackets and the training side of things, which I'll touch upon with you in a bit. But there's all this great kind of the buzzwords about, particularly about probably 10 years ago, the game's changed and it's all about, this fast kind of hitting. Obviously the speed of the game is gone up considerably, but the basics are still there, and you can see that with the very top players, can't you, with the good length and the lobbing and everything else. How do you feel it kind of compares to your transition period, because you had a very long career, so you went through kind of a few decades worth of squash, and then seeing the graphite rackets kind of coming in, and obviously with Jahangir, and you were there in that you were his rival for the first phase of his career. But how have you seen the game change and the kind of positives from the actual game change that you kind of see with the modern tour now?
I think probably the biggest difference today, I think in my day, for example, I think the fitness level was pretty high, and you said you might touch on that, but Jonah, he was instrumental in making it a completely different game in that sense, and getting the players fit. Up until that time, we were reasonably fit and played a lot of squash, but he managed to bring a different dimension to it all. Yeah. And not only that, the players we had around, we didn't have large numbers. Don't forget, when I turned professional with Kenny Hisco, when your father was already, Jonah was already there as a professional, and there were only 3 of us. Yeah. Plus then we had a couple of players, Mohammed Yassin, and a few other Pakistanis and Egyptian players like Abu Talib who were still playing. But there were a handful of players that wanted to play squash for a living, really. So it was a small number, and gradually we got more and more happening. So I think the standard wasn't too bad, There's some good players there, but certainly the depth was nowhere near there, We would go through, say, a British championships, and I hardly had to get out of a canter till the quarterfinals type thing, But today, goodness me, you can lose first round, to anybody almost. Any of these, the top players. I mean, they're not like you, the really top a few players, but goodness me, it's very, very competitive and hard for all of them. So you're never assured of having an easy berth at any stage of the tournament, and that's where the huge changes come. Yeah. Not only that, you've seen all the various countries that played the game now. Years ago, it was predominantly, I suppose, England and all the Commonwealth countries, really, or where the British had taken the game. So
you obviously you did a huge amount. You were renowned for your 400s, I think. Probably because of you, Johnny Williams. Johnny Williams got 400 fever. I think he went a bit crazy with the 400s. But you enjoyed the 400s. Did you do quite a lot of court sprints as well?
I didn't do a lot of court sprints. I used to do enough hitting on the court. I didn't want to be on there anymore, So and I did lots of running. I did more than just 400s. I did a lot of different interval distances over the period of time. Yeah. But see, the reason I did that was because I was relatively quick on the court to start with. I had reasonably good on-court strength. That doesn't mean to say now I would have changed my training. I certainly would try and get stronger, particularly upper body strength as well, and core strength and flexibility. But that's one thing I didn't do well enough. Yeah. But certainly I needed to get aerobically fit. That was where I was falling down.
Because you were naturally an explosive player.
Yes.
Yeah. So you had that push from the tee.
And I played. I mean, I used to play squash, and from a young age, I played a lot of squash. And it was nearly all that. So you're lunging and doing a lot of things. I learned how to move it. And my type of game that I used to play, I used to try and get in early and hit the ball early. Yeah. I used to try and give my opponents no time whatsoever to hit the ball. Yeah. Even though it mightn't be as accurate doing that, it gave them no time, so I didn't have to be quite so accurate. So I did a lot of work, hard work, and I used to volley.
Yeah.
And the reason I did that was because the person who was number one in Australia when I was coming through was Kent Isco.
Yeah.
In order for me to beat him, I had to get in front of him, because otherwise, when I was behind him, I got no chance. He was too good. He could hit the ball too accurately for me at the front of the court, so I had to get him out of the middle. I did that by learning to volley and getting in front of him, and that's how I developed my... And I think because of that, I was more explosive around the middle of the court, so I was always hunting the ball down and was onto the ball quickly. And I think at one time, I think that they had done some testing to see, you know, the amount of time between hits in a rally, and I was the shortest amount of time compared to all the other players, and that's because of the style of play that I used to do. So when I came up with Jonah, there were more than just him, because your father, when I first came into the scene, was I was a better player than him, even though I was younger. And then he trained hard and got on top of me. And then after that, when I got to number one eventually, we had a couple of other Pakistanis, Qamar Zaman and Mohibullah Khan, come in. So that was before Jahangir era. So they were my main rivals at that stage for a number of years. They were two brilliant you know, Pakistani squash players before I ended up coming with Jahangir. And all those players from your father to those players I mentioned and Jahangir are all different styles of players. And that's what you're seeing today with Mohammad Shabagi and Ali Farag and the other good players that are around. They're all got different styles and idiosyncrasies and things, so it's quite interesting when that's a good thing about it all.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Yeah, you don't want everyone to be the same, and it's entertaining when it's like that. But the thing that you know, you can see is that some of these players, I suppose like Mohammad Shabagi, he's, as you say, he's not number one now, but he's working towards getting back to number one. And I had the same thing in my era. I was overtaken by Qamar Zaman as number one, and he got on top of me. So for me, that was a huge incentive to try and, okay, well, I want to get back again. And the same thing happened for me. You know, Jahangir's coming up, and he beat me in a well, I wanted to find a way that I can get back on top of him. So I was working very hard to try and do that. And I think that any of the champions today do exactly the same thing. You know,
in any era.
Yeah, they're not satisfied with coming second, really.
No.
And therefore they'll work really hard. Very few people want to just sit back and say, oh, well, no, he's number one now. They want to say, now what can I do? And they then go about finding a way to improve and get better. And therefore that lifts the standard, in my opinion. You know, it's a bit like when Jahangir was coming up. I was number one, so he's working out a way to beat me, you know, and how to get on top of me. And he's trained effectively and hard to do that. So that's the way you've got to think about it. Don't just rely on where you are and be complacent about it all. Otherwise you're never going to achieve. And I think all of the top players have gone on with that attitude and try and maintain and be on top.
Fascinating to hear from Geoff Hunt there. I mean, he's such a legend of the game. Johnny, growing up as an Australian junior and looking at him as such a hero, what was it like for you?
Yeah, it was. He definitely was the man that everybody was focused on in Australian squash. Sometimes on the news, Sports Report, there'd be a little clip. You know, Geoff Hunt's won the British Open again. He won 8 of them, and most famously against Jahangir in 1981, when he won in 2 hours and 14 minutes in a 4-game, unbelievable battle. And I can remember as a junior playing a junior match on a Saturday. It was about a week after that, and there was a newspaper clipping on the wall: Hunt wins 8th British Open title. And I looked at that and I thought, this guy is like some kind of god. You know, he must be, you know, not even human to be able to do these things in a place a long way away. So for an 8-year-old, that was pretty impressive.
Geoff based a lot on running outside the squash court, wanted to get outside the squash court, a lot of interval running, but also 400s. And what's the story? How many 400s did you manage to achieve? You've got the record for the most 400s completed in a certain time frame, haven't you?
Yeah, I do. I was running 400s from the age of 16, and Geoff's so-called record of 30 400s, running on a cycle of 75-second 400, 45-second rest, that was the record to beat. And that was like a red rag to a bull for me. Goodness. So I got to the institute and we started crunching out big numbers of 400s 3 times a week. And then after
3 times a week?
3 times a week.
Training?
Yeah, 25 400s, 7 in the morning to avoid the real heat of the Brisbane sun in the summer months. And then one day I got to 25, I said, I'm going to keep going, I'm going to go past 30, and I did 32.
And how did you feel after that? Were you sick?
I was ready to keep going, Joe. Honestly, I could have done more. I really felt... Perhaps
really?
I regret it. I feel like I should have gone to 40 that day because I was feeling really strong. And I think the last 7 I was running faster and faster.
What other qualities do you think made Geoff Hunt truly great?
Well, I think that, I mean, obviously he was known for his ridiculous fitness and that regime, you know, that we've been talking about with the 400s. But the other thing that he had in abundance was mental strength, and your father would be the first to say that. I mean, they had battles at 1972 Sheffield where Geoff was brought to a standstill. But Geoff was incredibly mentally strong. But he also, I think, what was underestimated a little bit is his ability to strike the ball nice and straight. And in those days, the game was played mostly at the back of the court. So if you're really striking the ball cleanly in the middle, nice and straight, and hitting your marks at the back, then you were going to have an advantage over the rest of them. And that's what Geoff had as well, I think.
Johnny, the length part of the game is so crucial, the primary foundation to be a great player. And we managed to catch up with some of the current pros to see who they feel are the best players in the business.
Maybe, I don't know, it's a very tough question.
Renee. Wait, we're talking fastest on court? Okay. Okay, I would say Liv Blatchford or Renee.
When I play against Renee, I feel like she's pretty quick, so.
Renee?
I think I'd have to go with Noor Al-Tayeb.
Maybe Camille Sim?
I think Renee.
I would have said Renee.
After me, I would say Tarek.
Some people might argue it's me, but I honestly don't believe that. I think it's Rodriguez.
Tarek. Miguel.
Tarek.
Oh, Tarek. Miguel and Suarez. Actually, the one I played last week, Miguel Rodriguez.
Tarek.
Ali Farag, John Macon and Paul Cole.
My friend Sébastien Beaumalet from France.
That's an interesting one, hearing that the Colombian cannonball, we know is very, very quick, obviously. I think he would be in the top 3 or 4 for me. What do you think? I mean, who do you think is the quickest?
For me, it's Paul Cole, Superman.
Okay.
It's not just the repetitive speed endurance that he has, but his ability off the mark to get from point A, when we're sitting in this court right now, to point B. I think that added with his ability to lunge, he's got that great flexibility. I'm taking everything into account. I just feel that Cole is the quickest.
That's interesting you say. I like the way you encapsulate that, because people will see a quick split movement and say he's got to be the quickest, he's got to be. What you're saying is literally getting from one position of the court to the other, 2 extremes, but doing it with balance and power and technique.
Exactly, and then you're going to break as you go into the corner. You've got to get out of there as well, and that's what Cole does the best, I think.
Well, I'm very surprised with him that, you know, he's got such a strong body, but he hasn't actually had any injuries yet, because he throws himself around. We saw, sadly, the Colombian cannonball who hurt himself at the US Open. He's 33 years of age now, and talking of injuries, you've had your fair share and so have I. I managed to catch up with Derek Ryan at the Barrington Manor, and we talked about what happens with the knee. Well, it's only been a week and I'm back with PSA World Tour physio Derek Ryan. I can't believe I'm seeing you this quickly, but Derek, you've helped me out with my ankle. Now you're going to be looking at my knee, which has troubled me. We've seen horrendous injuries again on the PSA World Tour with knees involving Ferris Dasuki, Borja Golan, even Gregory Courtier, a slightly different injury but still involving the knee. And of course, again, we see it in the amateur environment with club players and stuff. So be great to just talk through what we can do to keep strength and stabilise the knee for injury prevention, and then if there are any issues with the knee, what we can do to kind of rehab and get back on court and get playing again.
Yeah, it's a common site for injury with any sport that's multi-directional like squash, and a number of things can go wrong with the knee, but generally the bad stuff are trauma injuries where there was a bad twist or someone just came in very heavy on the knee, which is unusual in squash but can happen. But generally a lot of the time the injuries that I see with squash players can be manageable, but the ones that are less likely to get the knee pain and knee injuries are the ones that are doing the appropriate training and the appropriate dynamic warm-ups. So keeping the legs strong, the quads, the hamstrings and the gluteal area are key areas to reduce that risk of injury.
Are you going to have a look at my knees to see if I'm
have a look on your back there.
going to pass the MOT?
Okay, so you have a few scars there from the past. Ever had any surgery?
On there, that's just from kind of general clumsiness. Okay. On my left, below my knee, I actually did get an impact from Jesse Engelbrecht. He kneed me and fractured my fibula.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
fractured the top of my head and my fibula.
The key areas to look for are, for stability, we've got ligaments on the outside and the inside of the knee. Got 2 big ligaments on internally deep inside the knee that crisscross, which are the cruciate ligaments. A lot of the time with squash players, we can get a tendon pain around here or general pain in and around the kneecap, various different parts, and it's a floating bone which feels a bit weird, but can be the culprit for a lot of knee pain. And if you are getting pain in and around the kneecap, it's important to look at your overall strength, look at the hip area, even look at the ankle to make sure you don't lack mobility around the ankle, because that can cause pain around the knee, and mobility and stability around the hip area. But generally, if you have knee pain, you'd have to look at getting it properly assessed and try and train around that pain. So the bike would be a good substitute instead of racing around that squash court. And I always see it as sometimes junk squash. Someone's carrying a bit of a niggle for a long period of time. They don't move well, they're not playing that well, they're not that happy with their performance, but they're still battling through and never really getting on top of the issue. And sometimes a little bit of time out, but not resting, but doing the bike, which is generally can be pain-free, and then really focusing at the areas that probably need to be addressed. And again, you're looking at your dynamic warm-up, you're looking at what you do in the gym 2 to 3 times a week if you've got the time. But often, a lot of the time, you can tick the boxes of those exercises in a decent warm-up before you get on the bike or before you train on the court. Okay, so the bridge, you're going to be activating and strengthening your gluteal muscles, your buttock muscles, and the back of your thigh, your hamstrings, and it's a nice easy exercise for the knee. Okay, so you're going to lift your hips and back off the ground, hold it for about 2 seconds, but keep breathing, and then lower back down. And you can place your hips back on the ground and then up again. Each time engaging and clenching your glutes.
I can really feel that.
And then back down. So reps anywhere between 8 and 10.
And then 6.
And then if you keep your sets, 3 sets. Yeah. Okay. I would now get your legs nice and straight. So straight on the ground. And you're going to do a straight leg raise. I'd normally do either 3 each side or 4 each side. And I want you to hold this for 5 seconds. So I want you to lift your left leg straight up in the air. It's actually the leg on the ground I want you to focus on. So I want you to squeeze your glute on the right, and I want you to tighten your quad. And try and stop me from lifting this leg in the air. Make it difficult. So now,
you can't lift it.
Engaging your glute on the right,
You can't lift it.
and then back down. Challenge me. I'll have a go on this left one now. Again, lifting that leg right up. Squeeze that left glute, tightening your quads. You're getting nice activation here.
You can't lift it, it's impossible. It's just so not lifting it.
And then relax. You don't need someone to actually lift it. I just wanted to give you an idea of how much you need to push that leg into the floor.
Joking aside, I can really feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very good. You know, these exercises really, really important. If somebody does have knee pain, unable to lunge, unable to squat because of the knee pain. So how are these exercises helping the knee joint?
Okay, so you're not aggravating the knee joint. So a lot of the time, if we continue playing squash when we have knee pain, they stay sore, they stay inflamed. So you want to start introducing a few exercises that don't cause knee pain, but they're still activating and maintaining strength around the back of the thigh, the hamstrings, and the gluteal muscles as well. Also with the straight leg raise, you're actually able to get a little bit of activation of your quads without irritating the knee. So focusing on those floor-based exercises will give the knee a chance to recover when it's irritable.
Thanks, Derek. Appreciate all that. Fantastic bit of knowledge again input from Derek Ryan. I'm going to go away, work on my strength around my knees to make sure that I don't get any pain. And I hope that you all have found it very, very informative and can enjoy playing squash pain-free. Johnny, always very good to hang out with Derek. He's hugely knowledgeable, and you know he's got a wicked sense of humour, which I certainly enjoy. But talking of injuries, there's a different element, and there's something that plagued you and really hit your career head on, was chronic fatigue. Now, it's quite a grey area, isn't it? A lot of people come from it the fact that it comes from possible glandular fever and a low immune system initially. Peter Marshall also had it, world number 2. But just talk us through a little bit about the chronic fatigue that you had and your experience, sadly.
Yeah, for me, it all started in 1994, in June. I contracted a virus. I was very ill for 5 days, sweating through 4 or 5 t-shirts a night. Then I went to the doctor at that stage in the north of Germany. I got tested for glandular fever. It came back positive.
Right.
So initially it was quite clear. I tested positive for Epstein-Barr virus, or mononucleosis, and then I was told to rest for 2 months. I did that, but then coming out the back end of that, as I started to get back into training and looking at my next tournaments, which was the World Open in Barcelona in 1994, I lapsed into a state of fatigue where I just basically had swollen glands here and under the arms, and that continued on for around about 18 months.
18 months?
18 months of continuous problems where every day I would get out of bed, and immediately when I got out of bed I could feel that the body wasn't right. I was very tired, felt it under the eyes, and especially in those...
Where were you residing at this time?
By that stage I was back in Melbourne,
Yeah.
living with my parents,
Right, yeah.
being very annoying to them. They were trying to get me out of the house, but it was a very difficult time,
Yeah.
and I underwent many tests all the time. I was seeing a haematologist. You're watching the blood parameters all the time to check everything, and at that stage the blood parameters kept changing all the time, so it was very difficult for the doctors to pinpoint what exactly was wrong.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's brutal. And would you say now that do you still have knock-on effects even now?
I think so, to be honest, Joe, because as you know, I've struggled with IBS as well, and I think a lot of this stuff that I've had, now heading in my late 40s, it's all related somehow. You can sort of come back to that moment where it all started, and since the fatigue problems in 94 to 97, and then a repeat from 2004 until 2007, I've always sort of struggled to shake that fatigue tag completely away.
Well, Johnny boy, if there's any consolation, you still look in fantastic shape.
Thank you, mate. I love it when you call me Johnny boy as well.
That's a pleasure. It makes you feel young. So, talking of injuries in squash, there's so many different types of injuries. If you weren't to break your back, I know, which would be horrendous, but being in a wheelchair, what would you say is the worst injury to sustain on a squash court and for a sport like squash, for a squash player?
Well, we were just talking about the quickest players, and I said that Paul Cole is the one who can cover the court the quickest from A to B. If he were to rupture his Achilles tendon, I mean, the path back for him to get that speed back and that initial push off the mark, that would take a long time.
Another Kiwi, Joelle King, who's done unbelievably well. I mean, she's fantastic what she's achieved, Commonwealth Games gold medalist. She actually ruptured her Achilles. She's bounced back brilliantly. And we actually managed to catch up with her in Cairo during the Rugby World Cup.
We look like disjointed even in our defence. No! Oh. We're like out of it, aren't we? Mate, keep the faith. It's first half here. 24 minutes in and you've written us off. Mate, running away from your player. Go! Go, Brody! Oh, no! Put him in. Oh! Oh! Go, Sevu. Those. Oh my God! Why? What are they doing? Just swore on there. Just swore. Totally just swore. It just shows the passion. Easy, Tiger. Easy, you little sassy mink. Can I go and get food?
It's pretty hard to wrap moving at that speed.
He kind of tried to, and then it just, yeah.
So I'll need to dislocate my arm to wrap.
Told you, Beebs, changing the game that disallowed try.
Richie and
All day, Sam. All day, all day.
England. Ford with the opportunity. Ford.
My friends are having a finals party, so now the chat is like, and all the girls have been in All Blacks jumpers for the party next weekend. They're like, I've still got the receipt. They're like $100 as well.
Not even.
Should we just leave? That stings. You should have just not come back.
Interesting one, the Rugby World Cup there. Obviously, we had an amazing game against New Zealand. Sadly for you, I think the only involvement Australia would have had in the final would have been from a referee's point of view.
Gee, thanks, Joey. Luckily, my favourite sport is Australian rules football, if I can try to avoid that one, yeah. But the Aussies not really doing well in the Rugby World Cup. But let's not forget, the Springboks are the world champions at the end.
Yeah, that hurts.
Well, and 32-12, it was a bit of a hammering, mate.
That really hurts for me. I was getting back for that match when we were in Cairo. We all had our headphones on the plane, so we were flying when the match was on. And I drove back very quickly, obviously not over the speed limit, to Somerset from the airport to watch the rugby with my dad. And I got to my dad's house. The doors were all locked. I went round to the bedroom window. He's there on the ground floor, and was knocking on the window. He was watching the rugby. It was at least halfway through, ignoring me. So I'd been away for a while in Cairo, ignoring me. I was knocking on, and then I can't repeat what he said to me, but it did start with an F, and
fantastic, was it?
And off, and I disappeared. Thought, right, I'm going to have a shower and relax a little bit because this is a bit odd. And then my father drove out the driveway. My wife was coming down the lane, and he just missed my wife's car and went into a hedge. I then had to come out, help get the car out. Obviously, I pushed the car out with the strength that I have. And then he started to speak to me, and I sat in the car with him, and he basically effed and blinded about the final that I'd missed, and I actually never saw it in the end.
Well, you missed something special. The Springboks, they really did a number on England, and I'm going to tell you the honest truth. I was coaching that day, and we stopped the junior training. We went up to...
Who are you supporting?
South Africa, mate, of course.
Why, of
Never
course?
Support England. I mean,
oh my goodness me, I'm going to have to talk with the superiors about getting you in for commentary here. I'm not happy about that. Always emotions in squash and outside of the squash court. The pressure's on you, obviously, to get married, and it's about time that you sorted yourself out.
You keep reminding me.
I know I do, because I'm quite traditional in that way, and I think that you need to follow suit. But another amazing thing happened at the Pyramids. The Pyramids are certainly a unique place, involving the Dutch #1, Milou van der Heijden. She had a very, very special circumstance happen to her.
And then all of a sudden he shows up and I'm like, what? Okay, sorry, my boyfriend just walked in. What's this all about? He was going to work and my dad is here. I'm here, what is it? Are we still taking the picture or no? Jawel, het past wel. Beetje duwen. Oké. Nou. guys got me. But no thing on Squash TV. We don't need to. Oh, come on.
Yeah.
What's happened? Oh my god! Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's so weird. Oh my god! That's
Oh my god!
Of course. I didn't expect anything different.
No, they were like, oh, you have to do a photo shoot for DPD. Can you come in the morning? And I was like, oh, it's like, can we do it at 9? I'm like, well, I have a match, so can we do it at 8?
Trying to sort out a bus to get here, and then another car to get them all up after.
So I'm like doing the thing up there, and then I'm like, okay, so is it done? When is the next bus? And he's like, oh yeah, let's just do one picture on court, goers. Oh, there you go.
What it was for? Go her?
No, but I said you need to come off because
You need
something's
to
going to be
get off.
happening, and you'll understand in a second.
And then all of a sudden he shows up, and I'm like, what?
Geez, Joey, what a fantastic way to tie the knot and propose to your wife in front of the pyramids of Giza. But tell me, how did you propose to your wife? Because I heard that you ran off to Antigua in the Caribbean to do it.
I did. I did. It wasn't pre-planned at all. We went there on holiday, and I thought we were staying at this amazing villa, and I rightly said, what an amazing place this would be to get married. And within 5 days...
Sorry, just repeat that. How long was the engagement period?
A few hours.
That's got me scratching my head.
Yeah, I know. Wow. And we got married, and the day before we were getting married, which was on the cliff top overlooking the ocean, which was very romantic. Obviously, you know how romantic I am. I rang my dad, and he picked up. I said, Dad, I'm going to get married tomorrow. And my dad said, Joey, take 10 deep breaths. I'm going to pass you to your mother. And he never spoke to me again until when I got back to England. So that was relaxing.
Yeah, my invitation to the wedding is still in the post somewhere, being carted by sea. I mean, I never heard about it.
Thanks, Johnny. Well, I mean, I'm going to say on that note, you probably won't come back here. And if it is, it's going to be at least a year. But no, that's been really good fun with you, mate. And really looking forward to Beyond the Glass episode 3 coming shortly.